Okay, so I have just a couple of issues with Teams today, so I'm going to switch my camera off because it's asking me to dial in and I've never had that message before, so I'll just switch my camera off, so I do apologise. Or maybe not, because it's probably better not to see my face all the time. So thank you so much for inviting me, Pam, and to join your early learning and childcare community across Renfrewshire today. I'm going to be covering digital literacy at early level, and particularly looking at how we can embed it across our play curriculum. Looking at the why, the what and the how, and as I said, how can we incorporate digital literacy and computing science across a responsive, continuous play-based curriculum. So I'm also going to start with some really high-level messages, providing the national direction of travel, and more importantly, providing that overview of direction of travel for all our learners. Throughout the presentation, I'll add some links into the chat facility. I believe my colleague George is also here, so he'll be able to add some links into the chat facility as well. I really want this to be a collaborative session, so I will be asking some questions throughout the session, and I'd love to see some of your responses popped into the chat facility as well. Also, I do like these sessions to be quite informal. I know that we've got about 200 folk joining us, so sometimes it's quite difficult, but feel free to pop your hand up, ask any questions. George, Pam, if you see anyone with their hand up or any questions, please feel free to stop me, and we can answer some of those questions as we go. But as I said, oh, great, Pam, thank you. So I just wanted to start with some of these high-level messages. What are we all working towards? Why is digital so important? And it would be totally remiss of me not to begin with lockdown, with the pandemic, and how it has fundamentally changed our way of life. It has completely transformed the way we learn, teach and assess in an online, hybrid, blended learning and remote environment. We now all have new ways and creative ways of using digital technology to communicate, collaborate and learn alongside our colleagues, families and communities. But it's also demonstrated the problems that have come from digital exclusion. It's reminded us all that whilst technology can transform all of our lives for the better, it's essential that we ensure that no one in Scotland is left behind. The speed of digital transformation around the world is only set to increase, as we all know. But how can we all ensure today that we are ready for this change? So tackling digital inequality, well, we know that the Scottish Government has already invested 70 million to support digital inclusion amongst our disadvantaged children and young people. We know that there are a mixture of devices across our settings. So how can we all be sure that we are using these effectively to leverage great learning and teaching across our settings? Now, any of you who were at George's session on cyber resilience and internet safety, he shared some really important research with us from Ofcom, and I'm sure it was Ofcom, George, but feel free to pop that into the chat facility if I was wrong. 80% of 3 to 4-year-olds own a tablet. How can we be sure that we are using the technology effectively in our settings, and how can we be sure that we are using these devices safely and securely at home? So also, how are we leading a digital change across our settings? So the digital agenda goes far beyond just the adoption of digital technologies. It's about the application of digital thinking, being open to experimentation and understanding the processes that leads to improvement in learning and teaching. Where does it sit within our improvement planning? And one great takeaway from today's session, if you don't take anything else away, please take this main message away, that good play pedagogy will never be replaced by technology. It's all about how we effectively embed technology into the play pedagogy of our curriculum. Are our young people prepared for independent, self-regulated learning and the future workplace? And we'll speak a lot about that in the next part of this presentation. How can we ensure we're supporting learners to meet the 4 capacities? And I've also got some really good resources from the Play Pedagogy Toolkit that sits on our National Improvement Hub, and I'll share that link in the chat facility later on in this presentation. Independent learning, self-regulated learning. There is a massive push across Scotland to ensure our learners are independent and able to effectively self-regulate their own learning. And again, that's what you guys do so well in our early learning settings across Scotland. And again, just reiterating what George was speaking about at the Cyber Resilience and Internet Safety presentation. If you weren't at it this morning, I would absolutely stress that you try and get to that this afternoon. Digital wellbeing and safeguarding. How are we talking about that? What are we talking to our learners? Do we know what our learners are using online? Do we know if they've got a tablet at home? What are they doing and what resources are they using? I thought it was really, really interesting to hear from some of you speaking about how you know that your learners are using YouTube already. Some are perhaps using TikTok, what devices, what games they're playing. Those conversations are essential to have with our learners because it ensures that we know how to be able to support our learners to talk about the risks that they are possibly facing. I'll also speak a little bit about the Digital Schools Award framework and how that can support all of our settings as well. So just some questions to reflect on now. So again, just emphasising everything I was speaking about, what were your successes that you experienced during the time of remote learning and during lockdown? How will you maintain and build on these skills? And more importantly, what professional learning do you need? And that's really important for Pam as well. What else do you need to be able to support digital literacy and computing science in your settings? So again, please feel free to use the chat facility to share some of your reflections in that area. Now, I definitely want to see some of you adding to the chat facility with this question, because this is what we're going to move on to speak about. Why are we striving to embed digital literacy in learning and teaching from an early level? And again, that's really building on the presentations, both from Jenny on, using GLOW and also from George on cyber resilience and internet safety. So I just want to pause just for a minute, ask ourselves these questions. Why is it a national priority? And why are these digital skills essential for all our learners? I'm just going to pop into the chat facility to see if anyone's adding anything. I've got someone with their hand up. Let me see if I can see who that. Julie, do you want to come in there? Julie Lynch, it might just be a legacy hand. She might not actually have her hand up. But please feel free, if you've got your hand up, if you want to share, why are we striving to embed digital literacy in learning and teaching at such an early level? Thanks, Sharon. Using Seesaw to keep in touch. Brilliant. Create learning experience and read stories every day. Marvellous. Secure further education or employment. Excellent, Nicola. Thanks so much for that. To promote inclusion. Absolutely. Thanks, Rebecca. Anyone else? Basically, everything that you've said there, absolutely correct. But what I'm going to stress on, absolutely future jobs. Thanks, Nicola, some more there. Prepare them for their digital future, the future that they're currently living in and what that's going to look like in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Really, really important to talk about that. So talking about developing our young workforce, it is never too early to start those conversations. Employment may be far off, but the most sought after employment skills are starting to be developed at a very early level. And again, I'm going to start speaking about some of those skills as we move through this presentation, but please feel free to add to the chat facility and let us know what you think about those early level skills in a digital environment. So I really just wanted to start with a Scottish context as well and what that looks like. This isn't probably a new message for most of you. The digital technology sector is the fastest growing sector in Scotland. It currently employs 100,000 people, and every single year those jobs are increasing in number. So the job market are desperately seeking people with digital knowledge, digital skills, computing science knowledge, computational thinking, etc., etc. What's really important is what it contributes to our Scottish economy. Very, very important. Also, what's really important, particularly when we're speaking to our families and our communities, the average salary is 37,500. Really, really important to be able to share that with our families as to why we put such an emphasis on embedding digital skills at such an early level. The next two statistics are something that's incredibly close to my heart and no doubt close to all of your heart, is that we only have 23% of females that represent our digital industries today, and less than 10% of females represent our STEM industries. So it's hugely important that we ensure that the digital industries, the digital sector, learning within digital is open to all, particularly in computing science. What I'll also do is I'll pop a wee link up, and George, I don't know if you're able to pop the link in, it's probably not close to hand, but there are some wonderful resources from Improving Gender Balance and Equalities team, some wonderful learning resources and some really super strategies just to look at how we manage our learning environments to ensure that the learning opportunities are available and open to all. So again, this is some really excellent research from Skills Development Scotland, looking at what the digital sector looks like. Really, really important for us all to know that. Again, emphasising those 100,000 digital technologies sectors and looking at those top employment occupations. So we're looking at data analytics, artificial intelligence. Some of you spoke about using Siri, Alexa. That's artificial intelligence. We're sometimes often using that on a daily basis without realizing we're using artificial intelligence. Machine learning, algorithms, the Internet of Things, and quantum computing, how computers learn. Really, really important, high-level messages, information that some of you might be thinking, this is the first time I've ever heard about it, but we're all using it. It's all around us in the environment, in the world around us, and sometimes we don't even realize it. But it's so important that we start having those conversations. So this is what the workforce looks like. This is what digital looks like in the workforce around us. I often really struggle to look for a job today where digital doesn't form a part of that, where computing science doesn't form a part of that. So again, if you fancy popping into the chat facility, please feel free to let me know if you can think of a job where digital skills doesn't form some kind of part to that. I also want to give you that in a global context. So I've set the scene for Scotland. What does that look like globally? And some really nice information and research from the World Economic Forum. So what are the top 10 job skills for our future? By 2025, 85 million jobs will be displaced by a shift in division of labour between humans and machine. 50% of all employees will need reskilling by 2025 as technology increases. Creativity, critical thinking and problem solving are topping the skills that employers believe will grow in prominence in the next 5 years. And guess what? Critical thinking, problem solving and creativity sit at the heart of your curriculum in early learning. So it's absolutely wonderful to be able to hear that you guys are at the cutting edge of what you're doing in your early learning settings. So how are we going to embed that across our curriculum? So just looking at this slide, creativity again, it's the most sought after skill and it's at the heart of our learning experiences. If you're up to date with current knowledge and guidance, which I'm sure you all absolutely are, you'll be able to recognise this quote about creativity. And I just wondered if anybody wanted to pop into the chat facility if you knew where this quote comes from. Any takers? I'm sure you all know this document like the back of your hand. Thanks, Miss Daly. Realising the ambition. So as you said, it's from our Scotland's National Guidance for Early Years, Realising the Ambition, and to be precise, particularly page 24. So what do these skills look like at early level in our ELC settings, particularly through play? So I just wondered, again, if anybody wanted to share. I spoke to some of the head teachers across Renfrewshire recently, and you had some wonderful examples that you were able to share with regards to embedding digital and computing science across a play curriculum. Anyone? Okay, I'll just move on. So again, this slide is from Realising the Ambition. So in promoting happy, interesting and empowering learning environments, we consider the interactions, experiences and spaces on offer. Observations, as you all know, are key in how we get to know our children, our learners, recognising what they like to do and what might interest them and what they want to move on to next. So digital technology can play and help us to capture those observations, that information, and provide us with rich information that helps us to make accurate judgments to support children's learning. Digital technology can also enable the child's voice to be heard and help to make that learning visible, allowing children to revisit and reshape particular learning experiences and interests. It also enables experiences to take place virtually into the settings that can lead learning well beyond what was originally planned. I'm just going to pop a link here now into the toolkit that I was speaking about earlier. This is a really wonderful resource. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm just going to pop it in here. And this is the Play Pedagogy Toolkit. It's got a really, really nice presentation in there for you to be able to work through, some really nice questions, some prompts linking to how good is our early learning and childcare setting. But an absolutely marvellous resource. If you haven't seen that, please do share it with your colleagues. Okay, so let's focus particularly on the digital literacy experiences and outcomes. So we've got some amazing examples of how we can use it. And again, please feel free to use the chat facility to share how you're using digital technology. So we have our three organisers here, and again, some of which Jenny has already spoken about in her GLOW presentation, and so has George in his Cyber Resilience and Internet Safety presentation. So I've got lots of photographs to share with you here on how children are using technology, and technology is supporting the learning and the play within your settings. So in some of these photographs, children are exploring digital technologies, using what they learn to solve problems and to share ideas. I've got a lovely photograph here where children are using, let me have a look if I'll just go through to the end here, there we go. They search for examples of art in the outdoors. They saved their images on their tablet devices. They then moved indoors to help them remember what resources and what images that they had taken on their devices, and then used that video evidence to create their own artwork. What's also really nice is, just using very, very simple digital tools such as the timer tool, using recipes, for example, taking photographs of the different steps within that recipe, or actually recording using stop frame animation, using video evidence, capturing images, for example, of watching the eggs hatch and looking at a timeline for that. Also bringing the outdoor into your classroom, being able to bring astronauts into your classroom, bringing the outdoor world, and as I said, really bringing those experiences to life. So there's lots of examples there, really simple examples on how you could use digital technology incredibly effectively. So again, if you've got any other examples, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Now, I'm just going to highlight this just quite quickly because George has already spent quite a long time on this in his previous presentation. So again, if you haven't been able to go to George's earlier presentation, please do go in the afternoon. So I did mention digital wellbeing, cyber resilience and internet safety. That's a key concept of digital literacy from early all the way straight through to 4th level. Having access to digital technology is fantastic, but must be used responsibly. Cyber resilience and internet safety is a big part of digital learning and must be taught in tandem throughout the year and not just on Safer Internet Day and other events. Cyber resilience and internet safety is not a one-off event. As educators, it's our responsibility to begin the conversations from an early level, as early as possible, to ensure that we talk about consent and the right way to be able to say no. So for example, if we are taking photographs or videoing one another, it's really, really important that our learners can say, can I take a photograph of you? You're in my video, is that okay? Agree on where and when we shouldn't capture media. For example, near bathrooms or if someone is crying. Those conversations are absolutely essential. But why is it so important? Well, we need to teach our children to form a sound understanding of respect of themselves and others from as early on as possible. This is vital to ensure cyber resilience and internet safety is understood later on in life. The key message is it's never too early to start that conversation. And again, if anyone's interested in finding out a little bit more about cyber resilience and internet safety and digital literacy, we have some wonderful recordings that are you could find via DigiLearn Scott and on our YouTube channel. Really, really important that you spend some time. We've also got a sway that's linked as well that you can have a look through, some marvellous resources on that. Oh, sorry, these videos are going to start playing. So also another area that I've been speaking an awful lot about is computing science. I absolutely adore computing science, particularly at early level. And again, you know, it's an area where many of you might say, I have absolutely no idea what you mean about computing science. I've never, ever used computing science with my learners. And I bet you all have. You have all absolutely 100%, I can guarantee you now, been involved in computing science in one element or another. It is an incredibly exciting and inspiring area of our curriculum. And it's essential that as practitioners, all our young people benefit from the wealth of opportunities offered by the subject. We never teach computing science in isolation. We link it to subjects which are hugely popular, particularly with our girls, such as literacy, arts and the sciences. So when I always start computing science, particularly early level, I speak about, you know, what it is, what it looks like in the world around us. And again, it's emphasising just about having those conversations with our learners, because computing science is in the world all around us. When we go to the supermarket, when we go to the shops, for example, those doors open. It doesn't happen just by magic. Those are sensors. Speak about those sensors. Speak about computing science in the world around us. So when we go to pay for our messages, looking at the scan, looking at the code, that is computing science. Someone has created that code. Someone has created that information to make that happen and to make that work. It's not just magic. Our traffic lights, that is an algorithm to make those traffic lights work. And often there's also a sensor on traffic lights to identify if there's a car waiting. And then the algorithm is then put into play and the lights then turn green. And I bet you all have an algorithm for washing your hands across the nursery settings. I would be very surprised if you didn't have that algorithm. So an algorithm are simple steps within a process. I wonder if you also create an algorithm for brushing teeth. And I also wonder if anyone here today can pop into the chat facility any other algorithms that we spot in the world around us. So really important to have those conversations, identifying examples in the world around us, and more importantly, how is it impacted on our day-to-day? A really, really nice conversational starter to talk about computing science with our early level learners. So again, just focusing on our experiences and outcomes of computing science at an early level. We don't always need kit to be able to start our computing science journey. It's not about, you know, getting on the computer. It's about using, you know, programmable toys. It's about computational thinking, having those conversations, talking about patterns, talking about algorithms. And it could really, really easily be done for yourselves, because I no doubt you all have B-bots in your settings, but how do we use them effectively in a play-based curriculum? So I've got a lovely little video here showing some of our learners who are using BBots, and it doesn't work. One of the BBots just doesn't work. So if I just play this video for you now, hopefully it will work. Okay, doke. I'm not sure if you heard any of that music in the background, Pam or George. Can you tell me, did you hear that?
No sound.
Nope, that's okay. I totally forgot to add the sound on. Again, total rookie error, but that's okay. You didn't need to hear the sound there. So really that was emphasizing, you know, when we use technology, as I've just exemplified there, it doesn't often work as well as we would like it to. And that's okay, because that is building that resilience, it's building that, you know, it's okay for technology to sometimes work, but let's discover and let's explore the reason that it's not worked. And particularly when it comes to BBots in our settings, they can often end up in the sand tray, they can often end up in the water tray, and it just won't work. So let's open them up and explore how a BBot is made, created. And again, I bet you guys have got loads of examples of how you already do that. So I just want to focus on the three organisers in computing science in our curriculum. And I want to start with that computational thinking, and I've kind of already touched on that, but computational thinking is the golden thread that runs throughout our curriculum and our lives. It's intertwined in almost everything that we do. It basically allows us to take problems, break them down into more manageable parts, and to develop solutions. And now more than ever, we need those critical thinkers, we need those problem solvers to be able to solve those big world problems that we're all facing today. We then move on to understanding and analysing computing technology. What does that look like in the world around us? Do we understand how it works? Do we understand really how the internet works? When we switch on a computer and we want to find an answer to a question, what actually is that all about? What is the difference between the internet and the World Wide Web? And those conversations are really, really important to be able to have with our learners, because it's not just by magic. And I do keep saying that because as a practitioner, I often fell foul of saying that to my kids a lot. It's just magic, and it's absolutely not. It's important that we have those conversations. And then finally, that designing and building, testing computing solutions. This is about programming, coding devices, using those BBots, using those programmable toys, using the technology on our computer to make things move, to set instructions, an algorithm. And that terminology is really, really important as well to be able to share with our early level learners, because they love to use that kind of terminology, such as algorithm. And a lot of practitioners will be learning this for the first time as well. Sorry, I'm just going to move on from those videos. And again, we've got lots of different webinar recordings that you could be able to access via DigiLearn Scott. So how good is our early learning and childcare? I have spoke a little bit about this document as well, as have the other two presenters today. Really, really important that we scan this. Digital literacy, digital technologies, computing science is peppered throughout this document. So we've got experiences and outcomes. We also have the benchmarks and these key documents. But how do we know that we are embedding computing science at an early level? How can we self-evaluate? And this is really important. Are we providing these experiences and opportunities? And are we encouraging children to recognise a range of technologies and their purpose? I'd particularly ask you to have a closer look at 3.3, developing creativity and skills for life and learning. You'll notice just the amount of mentions of digital throughout that. As I said, it's completely peppered throughout the document. The validation framework for the Digital Schools Award that I'm about to speak about as well will really support to be able to answer some of these challenge questions in how good is our early learning and childcare centre. So, as I said, Digital Schools Award for Scotland, and I know that Pam has got the Digital Schools Award folk coming out to share what the award is for you, but maybe some of you have never seen it before, so I just wanted to spend some time just speaking a little bit about that award. So it was launched in 2017. We've got 1,630 registered schools already, 323 are already awarded. The award promotes, recognises and encourages a whole school community approach to the use and application of digital technology for learning and teaching. The most important thing to note about this award is the criteria, which provides help to assess progress and recognise excellence in the use of digital technologies, while also providing that practical support and encouragement. And again, I just really want to stress that, because this award isn't just about, you know, receiving the award, it's actually there to support you on your journey. So if you're sitting there within your setting thinking, this is the first time I've heard computing science, this is the first time I've really thought about how I embed a digital culture across my setting, this is the award for you. This is the tool for you, because it is all about supporting your setting to assess the progress and assess where you are now and where you need to go on to next. So please don't think of it just as the award, that final achievement, but more as a support for you in your setting, a support for you to come together as a team to look and to assess where you are. So the schools evaluate against 5 criteria: leadership and vision, learning and teaching, school culture, professional development, resources and infrastructure. And the self-evaluation framework is updated regularly to reflect current practices across Scotland. So the most recent was obviously during lockdown, where we looked at that hybrid learning within that framework. So again, just having a look at that, it's basically, you know, it is an industry-led award. We work very closely with Microsoft, Intel, HP to create that award. It is an excellence award. It's about developing skills. It's really, really easy to do. All we do is register online, and that's how you get access to the self-evaluation and the key criteria within those 5 pieces of criteria. So I'd also stress here that as soon as you register, you will get immediate support from the Digital Schools Award for Scotland. So they recognise that you have registered either as part of your school or your nursery setting, and then that is when they will be able to offer some advice or guidance with regards to how you're going to start that self-evaluation process. And again, in Education Scotland, we then get to know who has joined, who has registered, and where that support is actually required and targeted. And then we, in turn, share that with the local authorities. So again, it's really, really important to focus on this as a self-evaluation tool. Another area that I just wanted to also speak to you about, and that is the Cluster Award. So these are the 5 areas in the criteria of the Digital Schools Award for Scotland, but it's not something that you have to do on your own. And this is really, really important. I had a secondary colleague who presented at the Scottish Learning Festival recently, and he spoke about how they achieved the Cluster Award. But it wasn't the secondary that was leading on that award. It was actually the nursery and the primary settings who had worked together using the self-evaluation criteria, and then asked the secondary if they would like to come on in, and also they supported the secondaries to achieve that criteria. So I thought that was a really, really nice example of our nurseries and our primaries working together and leading the way to support our secondary settings as well. So don't feel as though you have to do the award by yourself. Absolutely, or even bring other ELC settings in with you to work together to achieve that award. And that's a really, really important message. So we've got more and more ELC settings across Scotland who are engaging in the tool. So again, please do register online, have a look at the self-evaluation tool. And George, I think you're there. So if there's any way that you could possibly pop that link in, that would be superb. Thank you very much. I also wanted to stress that we have recently revised, and George spoke about this in his last presentation, we have a revised Cyber Resilience and Internet Safety Award, and we're focusing on the digital well-being of our learners and of our school communities. So again, stressing about this award, it is a self-evaluation, it is a tool to support you. And what's really important is what do we mean by digital well-being? And I actually thought these 3 quotes exemplified that really, really well. Simply put, it's the way that we can successfully demonstrate the knowledge, skills and understanding to keep our devices and ourselves safe when using technology. Cyber resilience and internet safety is the driving force, as we know, to foster digital well-being. And through this revised, refreshed award, we hope it's going to provide all education settings with a framework to be able to support a community-led approach, to recognise, react and recover within the online world, identify our rights and responsibilities in the online world, and identify when we or our peers are at risk. And we know what to do, more importantly, if we spot something online, and who to go to speak to about that for help. And that's really, really important. And all of that is held within this award. Now, the revised award hasn't been launched yet. We're hoping that it's going to be launched within the next couple of weeks. As soon as I have that information, I'll be able to share that with Pam. But please do register, have a look at what's there already, and you'll be able to see the revised award, hopefully within the next week or so. I also thought it was quite important just to give you an overview of what's new. So again, looking at that criteria from the Digital Schools Award, there's nothing really different about it, apart from it is linked to cyber resilience and internet safety. Looking at that leadership and vision, that strong school community voice, looking at learning and teaching. How does the learning and teaching reflect incidents from any data gathered? What's actually happening in your settings? And again, that goes back through back to those strong conversations that you have with the learners. Looking at the student digital competencies, and then finally the professional development and resources. It's so important that you all get the correct professional learning and resources that you require at your fingertips. And again, just moving on to, well, what do those resources look like and where can I access those resources? Really, really important. And again, we've all emphasised this today, the digital DigiLearn Scott. It is your one-stop shop for all of your resources, again, to really, really support you based on the curriculum, digital tools, webinars, sharing practice, and particularly, you know, digital pedagogy is at the heart of all of the webinars that we deliver. So it's really important that you have a look at that. We've got over 100 examples from schools and ELC settings and case studies, real examples of what practitioners are doing and how they're using the technology. We have a range of live webinars and watch again. So again, some of those I spoke about earlier from some of my ELC colleagues, and we will continue to support. And if there's anything that you think, well, you know, I'd like to know a little bit more about this, then please do add that to the chat facility. Please do add that to the evaluations, because we can absolutely offer what you need. I also thought it was really important to also share some of our digital vision diagrams with you that's available on our DigiLearn Scott site. So again, this is really, really nice. It basically just, you know, gives a really good, strong overview of what we would be looking for within an effective digital early learning and childcare setting. I know that I shared this recently at an Excellence in Headship, and excuse me, most of the head teachers all said that they had already printed them off, downloaded them, and they were going to be using this for some professional development time. So a really great resource, again, completely available on DigiLearn Scott. Another resource I really want to share with you, which is just one of my favourite resources of all time. It's completely free. And it's called Barefoot. Now, some of you may have already heard of Barefoot. Some of you may have already engaged in a Barefoot workshop. If you haven't, then I please do go across to Barefoot and have a look at some of these resources. They have, it really promotes and supports you with computing science, particularly in the area of computational thinking. But what Barefoot's doing really well now is they are supporting early years. There is a wide range of early level materials there available to you, lesson plans, all linked to Curriculum for Excellence. They have also just launched a new autumn resource. So I think there's 3 or 4 lessons within that autumn resource, looking at creating garlands out of leaves, looking at algorithms, making pumpkin soup, which is lovely, and it's all there for you completely free of charge. You just register. You can also get a free workshop from Barefoot, or you can go into Did You Learn Scott to have a look at some of our previous Barefoot workshops. But I can't stress enough, because it's just so nice. It completely breaks down, you know, what we mean by computing science. And these posters, again, very, very visual. Print them out, pop them up into your staff rooms, across your settings. It's just a really wonderful resource, an absolute one-stop shop. Now, Jenny also mentioned this next resource, if my slide will ever move on, and that is what digital learning may look like. An absolutely superb resource, and I think I have the link here, which I will try and share with you. And if I don't have it, I know my colleague George will be able to pop the link in. I don't have it at the moment, but a link directly to what digital learning may look like. And again, this is really, really nice, because it's a great support resource for you to be able to go to, look at some suggested ideas, link to our experiences and outcomes, and how you can embed that across your curriculum. We also have, though, just to support you even further with computing science, we have a brand new Computing Science Did You Learn Scott blog. And again, on this website, it will absolutely support you with your computing science journey, giving you some really nice, clear, precise examples of how other ELC settings are using computing science, and access to a whole, you know, wide range of free resources for you to be able to access. We also have our professional development community there on the National Improvement Hub on Education Scotland's site. And again, I shared the Play Pedagogy Toolkit with you from that. We also have our hub on Glow for the ELC settings. And again, there's just a wide range of resources at your fingertips available for you. And this is the sway that my colleague Eva Wilkinson has created for ELC. Again, all available on Did You Learn Scott website. And we've also got the National Technologies Community, which is on Glow. And also you have the Knowledge Hub, which I'm sure most of you know and understand and access. This sits out with the Glow environment. And there's a number of ELC groups on the Knowledge Hub that you can access that link to Scotland. And again, a really wonderful community of practice there for you. Now, I'm aware that I've spoken a lot to you and at you for the last 45 minutes. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to hand over to you for the next 15 minutes. If anyone would like to ask any questions, if anyone would like to share what they've been doing, it would be wonderful to hear from you, because I know that some people have been popping into the chat facility already. And George, thank you so much for adding these links to the chat facility. But please do feel free to pop your hand up, switch your microphone off, or just add to the chat facility. And I'm sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, so I've been trying to stammer my way through that without sneezing or coughing, and I think I've done not too badly to cough on you today.
Thanks, Louise, that was great. Hopefully you got lots of ideas now, and I know it makes me just want to go away and find out more and to start trying these. I'm loving, someone in the chat has put in about their QR codes. Nicola, I don't know if you'd be willing to pop your mic on and just share a little bit about what that is. And I'm also loving Shirley's put on, it should be fun through play. You're absolutely right, Shirley. It should be about fun as well.
Hello, I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you, yes.
Yeah. I feel like a bit of a fraud, actually. It was our school was recognised for some of the work that they did using the QR codes during lockdown, and how they promote that within the kind of play pedagogy in their P1 and 2 classes. So we were just looking to see how we could incorporate that within elements of play. So one of our early learning childcare officers, Claire, they do lots of like slime making and Play-Doh making, and she had created pretty much a video of her showing the children how to make it. So the children go and use the iPads and they access the QR code. They've got wireless headphones that they put on so that they can kind of block out all the noise, and they go on and they know how to like pause and play and But yeah, they're absolutely fantastic. They're really, really good at using it independently, and it means that they can go and access that, and we're kind of just working up how we can share that with parents so that parents can do it at home as well. But yeah, it's been fantastic. The kids have absolutely loved it, and they're so quick. And it was amazing how many children actually recognised what a QR code was and knew exactly how to use it.
Probably now more than ever.
QR codes are absolutely everywhere, but yeah, the children that they've been using it's really enhanced their learning so much.
I think it's also, you'd also mentioned the Play-Doh. Now, obviously, you've created a set of instructions for the, being able to create Play-Doh, and just using that terminology, right? We've created an algorithm, and even then cutting up, that algorithm of how to create Play-Doh. Now, let's put that into the correct sequence, or take one of those steps away. What step is now missing? That's all computational thinking. It's critical thinking, problem solving, and just great for discussions and
Claire actually created the video with the children, so in order to kind of work out the right amounts and things like that, so she did all that problem solving beforehand with the children, so they knew if they put too much activator in, then it turned out like scrambled eggs, as the children said. Like that whole kind of process was done with the children, so it was really, really nice to see.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Nicola. And you would think I had primed you, and I genuinely hadn't, but we are actually running a course on the QR codes a little bit later on. It's coming up. I think it's towards the end of November. I don't have the date off the top of my head, but I'll have a wee quick look for it and I'll pop it in the chat. So specifically for early years, all about how you can use QR codes. So thank you for bringing that in there. Anybody else want to pop in and say how they've been using it, or to ask some people about, what they've been doing, just to have a wee chat? I appreciate it's difficult when there's, I think there's 100 odd of
I know.
150 of us, so it can be a little bit intimidating, but, please feel free to stick it in the chat.
I think it'd also be really good to know if anyone, here had thought, I've not been involved in computing science, and actually realised that, I can actually now say within my planning that I can add the experiences and outcomes for computing science, because we are absolutely involved in that. So, for example, the making of Play-Doh, the making of soup, we are using algorithms, and we are, looking at these steps to create an algorithm, which is really, really important that, that we do highlight that, and we do share that with our families as well, that, this is what we're involved in. And for a lot of families, if you were to add computing science to those learning logs, those learning journals, they'd be like, what is that about? And it's great to be able to speak to our families and our communities about it.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. Louise, I know we say this every time, we need an evaluation. Have you got an evaluation?
I absolutely do. I'm just ready to copy that and pop that into the chat just now. I've been popping it into all the chats so far, and I wasn't sure if, there we go, if it was our evaluation or your evaluation, but please do just let us know, if there's anything else that you think, I'd like to learn more about that, because that was just a real whirlwind tour, and you probably do need more in-depth sessions on, just computing science or digital literacy, and that's exactly what we offer nationally as well, as does PAM locally. Nationally, we're offering courses, and they're over, 3 sessions for computing science, the same for digital literacy as well. So it's not just one-off sessions where you come, you're plied with lots of information, and then off you go back into your setting, knowing that you've got lots of information there, and how do I actually now embed that? But actually, if you do over 3 or 4 sessions, you know that information will be embedded. You can actually come back, speak about practice, and it is all about that community of practice within these courses, which is really, really important.
Absolutely, and I think that early level play pedagogy toolkit, I mean, there's so much in that, and I know there'll be lots of you sitting there itching to go away and to have a go at it. So good, that's fantastic. So the evaluation's there, so if I can ask you to take the time just now to do it, I will send it out. For those of you who have been with us all morning, that's us, we're finished. For those of you who've just started, some of Louise gave some spoilers away about what's coming this afternoon. What's coming this afternoon. So hopefully that's whetted your appetite if you're coming back this afternoon. If anybody hasn't got any of the links or anything for this afternoon sessions, please just let me know. As I say, I have recorded this session. I'm just going to stop recording now.